And welcome back to the Ghost and Friends YouTube channel, guys. We've made it. We're officially here, Pack. We've seen a little bit of football, but the real main event kicks off tomorrow immediately from the Horseshoe, Texas, Ohio State. I've got Pack back here on the channel again, always doing a great job when he's on. We're here to look at some film from last Cotton Bowl, kind of see what Texas did to stymie, slow down to Jeremiah Smith. Obviously, Ohio State won the game. His teammates picked him up, had his back. Will Howard was great. We know all that. But we're just going to look and see what it looked like concept-wise, what PK was throwing out there at Ryan Day and Ohio State. So, Pack, how we doing, brother? You doing okay?
Yeah, I mean, you can't complain. College football is finally back. Tomorrow there's like 4 or 5 really good games to look forward to. So I'm great.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun slate to look at, man. It's definitely, in my opinion, the best opening slate we've ever had in the sport. I do have a pretty short memory, though. So, all right, 1 catch, 3 yards. Obviously, a talent like Jeremiah Smith does not put up that few of numbers without a pretty good plan in place. Texas was still very effective. We've talked several times before about the fact that Ohio State was very much feast or famine in that game. They have 3 touchdown drives essentially. One included the screenplay that haunts all of us, and then obviously they scored their last time on defense. So Texas, in my opinion, I mean, I thought Texas played pretty damn well on the defensive side of the ball. Played, I thought, better than a lot of people anticipated. I think they handled their run game obviously better than any of Ohio State's playoff opponents leading up to that had. But just quick takeaway before we get into the film. What were your thoughts in the Cotton Bowl, the defense that Texas played against Ohio State? Did you like the scheme? Did you like, the performance that we had? Did you think it was enough to get a win, or what were your overall thoughts?
Yeah, so I've rewatched that game now 2 or 3 times with all 22, just kind of watching and trying to figure out like what Texas was doing. And they were super multiple, right? Like I remember going into that game, my main talking point was Texas going to try to play cover 3 the entire game? Because what you saw particularly in that Oregon game, and this is something that happens with a lot of these man match quarter teams like Georgia, Ole Miss, Oregon, Bama when they had Saban, what ends up happening is when you get into more condensed formations, you auto check into cover 3 and particular vision cover 3. So you got eyes on the quarterback. You're not playing true man coverage or anything like that. And what ends up happening is, in the words of Mike Leach, everything gets open versus cover 3. So you end up being much more susceptible to a lot of the things that Chip Kelly wants to do. And so that's why for me, I thought you have to play too high. You have to be able to alternate between cover 2, cover 3, and then your quarter stuff. And I thought Texas did a really, really good job of that in the first game. And I would probably expect to see something really similar tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, when you have that type of result, I mean, I don't know why you venture too far from that plan. You have a young quarterback that doesn't have the game experience at the college level that Will Howard has. Obviously, you have a Carnell Tate, you have a Brandon Ennis, a Max Clare. They are probably overall just as good of weapons, if not better, as receiving threats. I mean, I think Claire's the difference there. But yeah, it's not going to be the same Ohio State offense. You want to muddy the picture the best you can for the young Julian Sand. But let's get into it, brother. I'm going to pull up the first clip here. We're going to let Pat kind of talk to you about what he's seeing. Then we'll run the clip and let him kind of diagnose the concept for you. And here we go. All right. So just from alignment here, Pack, talk to us. This is right before, you can see Manny belling off at the bottom. But just talk to us here. What coverage is Texas in? What are we looking to do here, particularly with number 4?
So this is one of my favorite ways to defend more spread formations. It's something that you see a lot of teams do versus teams like Tennessee, versus teams like Texas. Arkansas did this, and this is just the 3 high defense where you're starting from 3 high. And in this case, you're going to see double buzz, which just means both safeties are going to end up rotating down into the strong flats or the strong hooks. I apologize. And then you're going to get both of your backers ending up in the flats. And so what ends up happening is when you get into these 3 high systems, you can kill space a lot easier. So things like slants, things like square ins, digs, because you have safeties that are playing top down, you discourage throws from there. And that's something that Ohio State does a lot of, right? They're going to run a ton of slants. They're going to run a ton of square ins. They're going to run mesh. And so when you're playing top down on these concepts, it's way easier to, 1, get to the ball and to discourage throws from getting there. So that was one of the different ways that they played cover three, where they're showing middle field closed, but then they rotate and get into middle field closed, but from a different presentation than what you normally would expect.
Yeah, really well said, brother. Talking double buzz here. Um, the umbrella defense. Sorry, that's what I meant to reference. Matt Campbell kind of made this a huge thing at Iowa State, and then it was adopted by so many other defenses in the Big 12, or defensive coordinators rather in the Big 12. And you've seen, it's make its imprint on college football. Just kind of, on it's not every defensive coordinator's bread and butter, but man, when you are maybe I won't say Texas is outmatched, from an athletic standpoint, but when you really, as Pac just said, you want to keep everything in front of you. That's the umbrella. You keep everything in front of you. You can keep eyes on the quarterback, and just as Pac said, you're playing everything top down. You just got to tackle really, really, really well in that scheme and system. But all right, let's run the clip here. And Pac, anything you want to bring up, brother? Run with it. It's a little murky.
Yeah, but you can kind of see the idea, right? Where you get into clouded concepts over Jeremiah Smith, down into the field. You basically end up playing 3-over-1, even though it's not that. But you can see how there's that player down towards the hashes, towards the field, you end up getting a double team. You end up getting cloud coverage over him, even though it's not true double coverage. So this is one of the ways in zone coverage that you can get into double teams. For people that are familiar with Fangio, he would call this a Zeus coverage. So there's multiple different ways you can get into brackets. You can straight up double him in man coverage. You can run all of the Saban stuff that we might get into in a little bit. And then you can run like zone doubles, where you have someone who's playing him from the bottom, and then you have someone who's playing him from the top, and you're doing it with the zone drops and zone eyes. And it eliminates them as an option for the quarterback, but you're still protected from a zone perspective where you're not truly playing 2-over-1. So if something came over to, I think that's Jahdae Barron. If something were to come out like you get an out route, Jahdae Barron's in really good position to leverage that out route. And then you have Gavin Holmes, who's able to play the go route or the post route of Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, and if you look at Gavin, you look at Jade, they are in incredible position, as you just said. That's a very long throw right there from Will Howard to the opposing sideline or to the field sideline. I mean, that's a play that a Thorpe Award winner almost seems like he's almost baiting there just a hair. Obviously, the ball did not go Jeremiah's way, but yeah, Gavin over the top in good shape there. So yeah, I mean, very effective defense. It was really cool listening to Pac bring up in our group chat how many times Texas ran kind of each look. And man, they really did kind of throw the sink at the Ohio State offense and really just give them every different look, double the guy a bunch of different ways. And obviously, pretty dang effective, but it's going to have an opportunity for other guys to step up and make plays when you are doubling as much. Do you think that Jeremiah is a guy that, I mean, are you ever running man coverage here, Pac? I guess is what I should be asking you with Jeremiah with the personnel that Texas has.
I think you can, and sporadically with Malik Muhammad, where I think it's kind of you have to pick your spots right. You don't want to do it if you're going to play, like to me, if you're going to do it, you have to play middle field open. So you have to play some form of two-man. I don't think you can play it from cover one because you're giving no safety help, right? And like if you play two-man, you're not technically playing doubles, but you have that safety help over the top in case you do get beat or in case you do have something towards the sideline. So to me, you can play man coverage, but it has to be more selective. You can't do it from single high. You can't do it in like a traditional way.
No, I fully agree with you, man. And if you look back at the photo for this or the thumbnail for this episode, it's Jeremiah Smith celebrating a touchdown against Notre Dame. I mean, they made the mistake there. It shows what can happen with no safety help. Notre Dame had very, very good corners last year. They were very, very skilled in the secondary. Jeremiah Smith just might be the overall best player in college football. That's how it is sometimes. Let's move to this next clip, Pac. Do you have anything else here with the 3 high look you want to bring up, or do you want to see it again?
No, I think we did a good job of kind of explaining what's going on here.
Sure. Awesome job, Pac. Let's move on here. Clip number 2. All right.
So this is another form of cover three that we're going to get into. This time it's 3 cloud. You can see that Ohio State's got a stack to the bottom with Jeremiah Smith, and then I want to say that's Emeka Ibuka. And so what ends up happening is it's called three cloud because in traditional cover three, both your corners are playing deep thirds. In this case, one of the corners is just going to play the flat. He's going to be a force player, which means he's in the run fit. He's going to be someone who's forcing everything back inside, and then he's just playing as a flat player. And what's up happening is, again, just like in the first clip where you got that clouded double, where you've got someone who's playing in a squat technique, someone who's playing him from the bottom, and then you have a safety playing over the top. You get that once again where you can see, I think Jeremiah Smith ends up running like a deep corner route, and you can kind of see how it ends up getting doubled in a way, even though it's not a true double.
Let's take a look at it and see how it works.
Yeah, so you can kind of see,
right.
So you can kind of see again, it's a concept where when you're looking at it, because most of the time, if you're going to throw that go route, you're going to do it off a 3-step drop. And when you get to about like 2 seconds into the clip, that throw doesn't look open, right? Because there's two guys over there and they're both in pretty decent position. It looks like a true double. And this is one of the ways that they ran targeted concepts to Jeremiah Smith, but they were able to stay in their middle field closed cover three world that they wanted to.
It definitely, as you can see Howard there, it almost looks like he does pause. He sees that shallow defender, makes him think for just a second longer. And I mean, if Texas can replicate the way that they made Will Howard go through his progressions, with Julian Sayin, it's going to be, in my opinion, very, very tough for Ohio State to win. That's why I think Ryan Day force feeds the ball to Jeremiah Smith in many different ways. But I also think you overforce the ball to him, that plays into Texas's hands as well. Let's run it back one more time here so you guys can see it. Cover three again, correct, Pack?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it looks like a double until it's not, up until the very end there. And so, again, Texas ran a lot of cover three last year. Obviously, you said that was your concern kind of coming into that game, but being creative with how you do things, obviously that, it goes a long ways. And Texas showed a lot of creativity, in my opinion, from the defensive side of the ball in this football game. All right, let's go here to our third clip. All right, what are we looking at here, Pack?
Can we run it? I think I know.
Let's run it. Yep.
I want to make sure. Yeah. Yeah, so this is our Tampa 2 clip again. Up to the top where Jeremiah Smith is, you again get that clouded double kind of look where you've got Andrew Makuba being your pull runner or your vertical hook player in Tampa 2. And then you've got, I believe that's Malik Muhammad playing the boundary flat. And then you've got Michael Taft playing half over one. And so, again, this is one of those ways that you get into clouded doubles, you get into zone doubles where you don't always need to play man coverage in order to get double coverage. But what you can do then is you can keep your structural integrity, right? You're not devoting two players to one guy and then having to play 3-on-3 to the other side. You're able to keep the numbers that you want. You're able to play 4/3 to a side and then 3/2 and keep that +1 in the passing game, which really is important when you're playing a team like Ohio State because they run so many different types of routes, whether it's like the deep over, slants, out routes. They've got a very diverse route tree. And when you have that, you need to be able to get into certain doubles and you need to be able to leverage certain routes that you just can't when you're playing one-on-one.
Yeah, no, really well said, man. Tell the guests real quick, or the viewers rather. You talked a little bit about where cover three is susceptible to being beat. What about cover two? How are you personally attacking two, and what's your counter to it?
Yeah, so what ends up happening a lot of the time with cover two is it's that famous hole shot, right? It's the distance between where your flat corner is and where that boundary safety is. That little space right there, that hole shot, that's immediately where you end up being vulnerable in cover two. It's one of the things that cover three can protect against. But one of the easiest ways and one of the ways that it's often taught is you can just play it with a squat or a sail technique with your corner. So you're playing 60-40 split, but you're staying 60-40 on the deep out route. So you end up you end up making it look like you're playing off of the deep corner, the hole shot, and then you leverage down off of the whatever the shallow route is that's an out route, right? So you end up looking like you're playing like two man, but when the ball is thrown down to the out, you can leverage it. So that's one of the ways you can play it as like a soft trail. Otherwise,
Is
the
that what
obvious
is that what Kirby teaches a lot in cover two? That's what it looks like. Absolutely.
yeah.
Um,
So we can talk about this maybe when we go into Georgia a little bit like later in the year, but they have two different ways they'll play cover two, and um, one of the ways is exactly what you talked about, where they'll sink under it and they'll carry it through the hole shot area, and then they'll buzz down to whoever's bringing them down to the flat. And then they can also trap the flat, and that's what they call a two trap or cut. And that's what you saw that Quinn Ewers interception in the first game that Dalen Everett got into the boundary. That was cut coverage down there. And then they have another one. So they have a ton of different ways, but the primary way that they'll play it is carry through the whole shot and then let everything take you down to the flat.
Love it, man. Really well done, brother. Josh, I really appreciate the super chat, man. You hope you're enjoying dinner. Hope your little man's, he gets a W for his first ever Texas game tomorrow. Shout out, Major, man. Really, really cool that you get to have that experience. My kid, my first kid, first Texas game, we got shut out by Kansas State and Colin Klein. So definitely rooting for a better day for your little guy, Major. But all right, here. So cover two, personally, it's the defense I have the most respect for, because when ran well, it is just so very difficult to defend, especially if you have the ability in that deep zone. You have a linebacker, I mean, an athletic, rangy cat like an Anthony Hill or whoever you're walking down to play in that spot. I mean, that to me, when I face cover two a lot, that is where I primarily attacked. I love going through the deep middle, or we're going to run mesh and try to bait that level to come up, play just a little bit higher, and then hit posts all day. But I mean, I think, as you said, man, just how many times have you played college football 25 already, and you just let the wide receiver slip behind the corner on cover two? You throw a dot to him, and I mean, it just looks so simple. But yeah, you go play Kirby Smart cover two, a real man's cover two. It looks a little bit different, a lot more fun to watch. Clip 4 here. We'll run it. We'll let Pat. We'll take it back to the.
So I know what this is. This is one of those cases where you get a true double. So you can see it's obvious man coverage from Jahdae Barron, just from the eyes. He's playing press man. I believe it's an inch press man technique. So you're inching back with your feet and you're getting into basically you're waiting until they get into your grill before you shoot your hands, just like that, right? That's
Yep.
picture perfect inch technique from Jahdae Barron. And then you can see the safety who's playing, he's shuffling at a 45, trying to get over JJ, over Jeremiah Smith. So that's what we call cone coverage. Belichick would call this 1-double-4. Miranda calls it outlaw, bunch of different names. Saban calls it cone. So it's basically just a double on a receiver. They do it a lot to the solo side. It's something Texas did a lot when Jeremiah Smith was isolated. They would just run their cone coverage. You get a double, and you still have 4/3, 5/3 to the strong side. So you're fine in terms of coverage. You don't have to devote extra numbers, right? You've got 2 to Jeremiah Smith, but everywhere else you have good numbers. So this is one of the ways to get into a man double. And this is something you do mostly out of quarters. You're not going to do this out of cover one, but you will do it a ton out of quarters. And this is what I was talking about earlier with Texas being super multiple. This is what I was talking about, where they get into clouded coverage from cover two, cover three. They did it from Tampa, and now they're doing it from quarters, but they're doing it as a man double. So they were super multiple, and they were really, really intentional about changing the picture for Will Howard, but also for Jeremiah Smith, right? Like once you know it's zone coverage, you may run your routes a little bit differently. You may know what spots to hit. And if you're consistently switching it up, well, maybe if I'm running a hitch now thinking I'm going to be in a soft spot of a zone, but it's man coverage, I'm not going to be open. Or if I'm running a dig thinking I have man coverage, but it's zone coverage with a deep hole player like Tampa 2, well, I'm not going to get open now. So when you change the picture for both the receiver and the quarterback, That's one of the most important and one of the best ways to actually cloud the picture and to take someone out of the game.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, if you're lined up every time with a little bit of doubt of I'm not going to be open, maybe there's you're not running that route. I'm not saying Jeremiah Smith take routes off. I'm not saying that, but it changes the way that you run your routes. That's what I'm saying. Fully in agreement with you there. And I mean, that's a big part of it. Jeremiah Smith was a freshman last year. He's going to have, I'm sure there's a lot of discussion about this, quite clearly they muddied up his reads as well. And so Jeremiah Smith, I mean, I think it will be at the forefront of his mind that he will perform at a different level in this game. But I mean, if Texas is lining up and continuing to throw these looks at him, do you expect to see as much cloud as they ran back in January?
I think so. I think it'll be a steady dose of everything where it was like 25, 25, 25 in terms of splits of what they ran. I would do that again, right? It's a freshman quarterback. Well, not a freshman quarterback, but a redshirt freshman, I believe. Um, so you want to muddy the waters, make him confused, do a bunch of different stuff, confuse him. And then you don't want to run the same coverages all the time. Just because for that reason you want to muddy the waters. And then you have to be able to play your middle field close stuff. You can't stay in quarters because you're just not going to be able to stop the run at some point. So you have to be able to do different things. You have to be multiple, especially if early in the game, maybe Ohio State's super heavy with running the ball. You might want to play more cover three so you can play with 8-man boxes or with 8 people being run first. And maybe later in the game, you can play more quarters when they have to pass the ball the entire time and you're not as worried about the run game. So I think they are going to be super multiple. I think you are going to see a lot of cloud coverage, but honestly, I think it's what I would do. Because if you're going to play cloud coverage, you're going to force really tight window throws from Julian Sayin. And those are the type of throws I want to give him. I don't want him to see man coverage and be able to throw to a spot. I want him to have to throw between defenders, anticipate, and really be on time and and understand what he's looking at.
Well said. And I mean, do you consider the fact that Texas is most likely starting a freshman at the nickel position that, you probably run a little bit more zone? I think the blueprint is similar to what it was in January, but, just man is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. You're running man, even a third to half of the snaps would just get you cooked versus this team so quickly, even with a young quarterback like Sayin, because I know that you're a big fan of Julian Sayin and the way that he progresses and the way that he throws the football. And yeah, throwing, go watch the Oregon tape where Will Howard's just throwing to Buckeyes that look like they have not a single duck in the entire screen, compared to the tight windows he was having to get some balls in against Texas there at the Cotton Bowl. Just two completely different game plans. But I love Dan Lanning. I'm not here to knock him. Let's see here. Last clip we have for you. This one. All right.
So this is another example
Jeremiah.
of a cone coverage. This time it shows up like it's bracket. And this is one of the really cool things that you can do in like the Saban family or in any one of these man match quarter concepts is you can train your safety to play two different ways where you can start their eyes at the number one receiver, in this case, Jeremiah Smith, or you can have them start their eyes at Emeka Ibuka. So if you start with Emeka Ibuka, you start with a double on him. And then if he runs like a slant or a short out route, you can then snap your eyes and your hips to the number one receiver and you get into a natural double. That's the more traditional way that teams play bracket. But the other way you can play it is by starting on one. So you play inside and on top of the number two. You can see he's about 12 yards and then 2 yards inside of Emeka Ibuka, Michael Taff I'm talking about. And then what ends up happening is you can have them start their eyes at Jeremiah Smith because that's the primary guy we want to double. But if Jeremiah Smith runs an out route, I'm still in a good position to then double Emeka Ibuka from inside and on top leverage. So there's multiple ways you can play this. If you have Jeremiah Smith in the slot, I would expect a lot of bracket coverage and true bracket coverage. But then you can also flip the roles and you can start with a bracket on one and then get into a bracket on two, depending on releases.
Of course, yeah, releases are going to be everything there. I'm really curious to see how Texas plays in the red zone in particular because you have to be pretty creative. They got some big options, big weapons: Max Clare, Smith, Tate. But yeah, we'll run it one more time right there just so we can see it again.
Right, so Ibuka eliminates
And you
out,
see,
and
there you go.
so Ibuka eliminates out, and so, like, in a true bracket, if Taft's eyes started at 2, because the number 2 receiver eliminates himself, that just means he's not deep or he's not inside. You can now snap your eyes and your hips to Jeremiah Smith, and that's exactly what you see right there. His eyes and his hips are directly pointed at Jeremiah Smith. You're never throwing that ball right. That is perfect double coverage. So like that's again one of the ways that they played Jeremiah Smith. They played clouded doubles, they played zone doubles, they ran steal coverage where they poached him, they ran man brackets, they ran cone coverage. They were super multiple. I think you're going to see a ton of this again tomorrow, and I think it's going to work.
I'm with you, man. I'm curious to see, how patient Ryan Day is in this game, how patient Julian Sam will be in this start. I'm with you. I think that they run the football pretty heavily early in the game, really try to get that going. Because for one, if you can run play action, that's going to help Julian Sand just incredibly. I mean, imagine not having a ground game for the young man and just having him with that Texas pass rush, their ears pinned back on third down, medium, third and long every series compared to if they're able to run the ball on first and second down. He gets in a lot of third and twos, third and threes. It's going to make life a lot more simple for that guy. But on the other hand, Texas is going to do everything they can to win first downs. Put Ohio State, put Julian in the second and longs, third and longs. What are your thoughts? Is Texas successful tomorrow? You just said, you think it works. Is looking at a stat line like Julian saying, a stat line like Jeremiah Smith, what are you ballparking?
I think you end up with Julian Sands somewhere around 200, 250 total yards. Maybe something like, I'm assuming they're going to throw the ball about 30 times, something like 19 of 30. And then I would say under 75 yards for Jeremiah Smith. I think they are going to force feed him the ball, but I think that increases the likelihood of turnovers. And again, I think Texas is going to have a good game plan ready for him. I think they're going to have success playing him. I think you might see another big game from Carnell Tate or Max Clare or maybe Brandon Innes. I don't think it's going to come from Jeremiah Smith, though. And I do think Texas's defense will have a lot of success tomorrow.
I feel pretty good about it as well. I just have to think that, obviously our coaching staff knows that if they can eliminate the run game, that is going to be, a major. It widens your road to victory just significantly, man. That's going to be the literal top priority I have for Texas. I know there's a lot of concerns about the offensive line, but hey, if Ohio State's not moving the football, they're not putting up points, Texas is going to be in the football game. And so biggest priority for me tomorrow, stopping the dang run. Pack, anything else you want to touch on before we get you out of here and let everybody watch
No,
the
I
football?
think that's it. You have to be able to stop the run, right? If you can't stop the run, you can't run any of your quarter stuff. You're going to be stuck in cover 3. And we saw what happened to Oregon when they were stuck in cover 3 and what happened to Tennessee when they were playing cover 3 the entire game. They have too many route trees. They're too good at designing concepts. They're just too good playing against cover 3 for you. That's all they see in the Big Ten. You can't run it against them an entire game and expect to have a lot of success. So you have to be able to stop the run in order to play too high. So I think you hit the nail on the head. And then I just want to answer Hornboy's question really quick about the simulated pressures. So to me, I think you can run simulated pressures. It depends on what front you're in. So kind of getting into what simulated pressures are, it kind of depends because it depends on who you talk to. There's like this idea of creepers, which are showing 4 down and then bringing a second level defender and then dropping one of your first level defenders. So say you're in like a 4-2, you're just in a standard over front. You can drop the buck, which is in this case Colin Simmons, and then bring Anthony Hill as like an internal plug player. So he might blitz B gap, and then you drop Colin Simmons. That's what a lot of people consider creepers. And then simulated pressures are showing like 6 men at the box, showing a pressure, and then only rushing 4. To me, I don't consider them. I consider them the same thing. So I think you run simulated pressures just because of the way it stops the run. It's a really good way to get into bear fronts, which are notoriously good for stopping the run because you create a lot of one-on-ones. So I would run simulated pressures, but I don't think on third down I'm going to be overly exotic. If I can get them into third and long, and I can get my NASCAR package out there, get Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, Murad Watson, Justice Terry, whoever it is, if I can let them be out there and just pin their ears back, I think I would do that rather than try to be a 5 or 6 man pressure team and try to be overly exotic.
Yeah, to me, the overly exotic doesn't really fit, PK's mold, his mindset, or what he's done in his career as a play caller and just a scheme designer. So, Warren Boy, thank you for being here, my man, trooping it out on a Friday night with his brother. You'll be obviously doing some things on the channel next week, as we talked about. Sooners Cowboy, if Ohio State scores 37 points in this game, I will shave my head. I will shave my face. I will do the next show completely bald. You might not be here to hear that, so we may lose, and I might not ever have to do it. But I'm very, very confident this is a very low scoring game, especially if Ohio State was to win the game. I think they have to hold Texas under 20 points, because I think we're going to see a very plus effort from the Texas defense. Tie that in with Jack Boomeister, who's going to be a big boon in the special teams game as a punter transfer from Utah. I just don't expect that many points. Pac, do you see a relatively low scoring game as
Yeah, I
well?
think both defenses are going to play really well. I'm not expecting a ton of fireworks either way. I think Ohio State's going to do a good job with containing the run, getting pressure on Arch Manning. Um, I would expect like a 2017 type of game.
Yeah, pretty much where my mouth is. I think it's a 24-16, so just a hair more points or high scoring than you, Pac. Pac, thanks for being here. You killing it as always, man. Fantastic. Guys, go back and watch the start to finish if you haven't. Went through 5 clips of the Cotton Bowl just to see the different type of looks that Texas was giving Jeremiah Smith, giving Will Howard, and some that you'll probably see tomorrow with Julian saying. We'll see how Ryan Day is prepared for it. Pac, thanks for being here. Everybody enjoy your week.